Hi everybody, this is my first devlog video about my game I'm making right now. I worked a lot on it when I wasn't preparing for finals. I've only started making videos and looking at editing and animation recently, so don't be disappointed because of weak parts. With this format I would like to try to create something new, a kind of devlog where the average viewer who doesn't even program can have a little insight into the development of a game, but still understand the process. GameMaker Studio is a very easy to understand engine, especially the programming language, so I hope to be able to explain to you how it works as much as possible. The previous system worked by changing the state variable of the enemy to cover find after 2 attacks. The first obstacle who ran the code looked at all the enemies to see if one was equal to this value. Then the other obstacle had to scan it all too. If one agreed, he looked for what would be the most ideal position for the enemy considering the player's position. Then he rewrote the enemy's state variable to go to cover and the obstacle ID variable to his own ID so that the enemy knows where to go. There were several problems with the system. The obstacle would have to check all the 1, 2, 3, and so on enemy states, and the others have to do this too in every frame. So 30 times per second and 1800 times per minute. This in itself does not cause any lag, but many of these non-optimizations certainly do. On the other hand, in most cases, several obstacles would be suitable for one enemy, but in this case, the winner was the one who ran the code for the first time, even though another one would have been more suitable for it, so I had to change it. I decided to transfer the whole cover finding algorithm to the enemy, because he is the one who is looking for where he should go. At first I thought it was going to be easy. I tried to copy and paste it, but then I realized that this was not possible, so I had to plan and rewrite the code optimized for the enemy. The new system first lists all the obstacles that would be suitable for a cover and then decides which one would be best. To do this, I first had to create an ID system for obstacles as well as enemies. I used an array whose 0th element stores how many obstacles there are, and the numbers after it store the IDs of the obstacle. The obstacle saves the position of their own ID in the array in the number variable. As soon as the enemy gets to look for a cover, he looks to see if there are any cover within 300 pixels. If not, he starts attacking again. So if he checks all the covers in an area and looks for the closest one who does not have any other enemy using it. First, I create a temporary variable, that is a variable that only exists in that event. So it will be recreated with the default value in each frame, so the computer doesn't have to keep the variable in memory, and as a result the game requires less computer resources. Actually, I created this variable so that I don't have to type global.obstacle, I can just write o_id. Then a temporary variable called potential is created, which will be discussed later. Then comes the already mentioned array run and the selection of empty covers. Once I find one, I prefer to store its ID in a checked_ID variable because it's more understandable than o_ID. From here comes the more interesting things, but also at the same time more complicated. So much so that when I looked back at this code after several weeks after it was done because of the video, it took me a while to understand the code. It first checks to see if the enemy is not in the same position as the obstacle because this would lead to further errors. Then it creates 4 auxiliary temporary variables to help make the decision. Minus and plus contain the place where the enemy could go, behind is minus, and in front of is plus of the cover. Where the enemy can hide from the player will be the ideal point for the cover. dist_m and dist_p are the distances of these points from the enemy's position. So the potential variable is where the enemy stores where the most ideal point is yet in the obstacles. So this can be compared to the others. If, say, at 250 by default, then it can't find cover, so it starts attacking again. A similar variable is the distance potential, which compares between the ideal points in the obstacle currently being examined and those found to be ideal for the previous one. Then the enemy decides whether the object is to the left or right, and then in one row decides whether it is in the opposite direction from the player to the enemy, or between the enemy and the player, and also whether the ideal point is closer than the previous one. So in programming language, distance_m is less than distance potential. If so, then he will be the next candidate, so his ideal point is written in the potential variable and his ID in the cover_ID variable, and it does not change, so no closer candidate comes, then he will be the chosen one. I hope you liked the video. We put a lot of work into making it. I would like to ask you a few questions to make these videos even better. Should I show smaller code units or rather whole blocks? How much did you like the level of explanation? Should I explain it in more or less detail? Should I go into a little more about each aspect? Would you be interested in certain commands in GameMaker? For example, distance to point or more complex things? An opinion in the comments. That's it for today. Thank you for watching the video all the way through. I will try to upload one every few weeks. It takes a lot of work to make these videos. If you're interested in more frequent status reports of the game and videos, then follow me on Instagram, link in the description. Bye!